Our next story is about male circumcision, which is quite a difficult thing to talk about. Whilst it can be carried out under medical grounds, it's also regarded as a rite of passage within some communities. However, there is a growing number of men who say that they've been left both emotionally and physically damaged by it, and that their opinions have been ignored. Well, like I said, it's a sensitive subject, and you're about to hear strong opinions from both sides of the argument. Male circumcision has been called the ultimate parenting dilemma. Here in Britain, it's largely confined to the Islamic and Jewish communities. But in America, it's common across the country, with over 1 million procedures carried out a year. That's around 1 every 30 seconds. But rates are falling both here and abroad as parents break with tradition and an increasingly vocal anti-circumcision movement emerges.
Age 23, Alex took his own life. And it was only that day that I found out the extent of his suffering and that he'd had a circumcision. But boys don't tend to talk about such things. Certainly Alex wouldn't have. He was reserved.
There are few figures to precisely know just how many men suffer from serious problems after a circumcision. But Ashley Humphreys from Loughborough says he's one of many. He was circumcised as a young boy.
I didn't really say much on the way back home. I was in quite a lot of pain and discomfort. I don't think there was a lot of discussion there at all.
Ashley has since been told he needed this procedure because he had a tight foreskin as a child. But he now questions if this was the right decision, as there are non-invasive alternatives to circumcision.
Physically, it's had a massive impact on every element of life, really, from changing clothes to going to the toilet to just walking down the street, and the wear and tear of fabrics because of the stretching of the skin and the tearing. So,
Ashley, how does it feel talking about this now? How do you feel? Because it's such an intimate subject.
it is an intimate subject, and I believe by speaking out and talking my story that I can potentially save other babies from going through my own fate and my own suffering.
While Ashley continues his personal battle, I'm meeting a mum from the East Midlands who says her son was circumcised without her consent. The procedure was carried out whilst her child was in the care of his Muslim grandmother. She's agreed to speak to me, but doesn't want to show her face. Just tell me what happened.
So basically, I left my son in the care of his paternal family and the grandparents. It was supposed to be an Eid celebration, and basically they took him and got him circumcised without my knowledge and consent at a doctor's surgery.
How did that make you feel?
Angry. I felt like I'd let my son down because I trusted them. Even more so when he came back and you know, I could see he was suffering. It was quite difficult.
There are millions of men who are circumcised around the world. Your son has had the procedure. How do you feel about that?
To be honest, upon looking into it and trying to help my son, I do believe there's thousands of parents out there that have subject the child to this and are watching the child suffer and are probably playing it down a little bit through guilt and through pride and family respect and culture and whatever reason. I genuinely do believe that my son's not an isolated incident. Children have suffered.
While two members of the family were arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm, both were released without charge. And the doctor who carried out the procedure wasn't prosecuted. Now, according to figures from the World Health Organization, 30% of the global male population has been circumcised, of which 68% are Muslim. So why is this so important to this faith? Dr. Musharraf Hussain al-Hashari is a prominent member of the Muslim community in Nottingham, and his sons have all been circumcised. So, Doctor, why is circumcision so important to Islam?
Circumcision is a great and a very important ritual of Islam, just as it was the ritual and is still the ritual of the Jews and of course the early Christians as well, who came from that faith, and many other traditions and many other cultures throughout the world.
There are so many stories of boys and later as men having problems within their sexual life, their intimate life, because of circumcision.
There is no medical and no physiological and anatomical sense in that idea.
I would like to introduce you to Ashley. Ashley has had recurrent problems because of his circumcision. So he's finding it very difficult to hear what you're saying because it's had such a negative effect.
I think, no, just one case, and we all know sexuality has very, very many causes, and there are many, many reasons for having sexual problems. It isn't just due to the foreskin that's gonna, come on, we know that. I think you need to really, this is no evidence that it is due to circumcision.
My choice for myself is I want a whole and complete body. So I cannot choose that because someone else chose that for me a long, long time ago.
I think you've got some other problems, let's be honest. You have some other problems, and you're not admitting them, and that is what you need to be solving, really.
I feel quite outraged towards what he said.
Why?
I don't like how he dismissed of all of the problems that people have, because there are many sufferers around the world, and it seems like we're all being silenced.
Alex Hardy was another sufferer. Tragically, he kept quiet right up to the end. In 2017, he took his own life after complications with his circumcision. His mother, Leslie, feels it's essential that she now speaks out.
I think we all know that men don't particularly tend to talk about their problems in the same way that girls do. But I think circumcision is a very much a taboo subject. I think we don't know much about it. I'm not qualified to say that circumcision is always bad, because it isn't. It certainly was in my son's case. And I think we need research. We need to look into the risks, what can really go wrong.
David Smith runs a charity based in the Midlands. He offers help and support for sufferers like Alex. He also tries to encourage awareness and rational debate on the subject, but he says that can be difficult. For somebody who does want to speak out about this, what sort of opposition are they coming up against?
Well, obviously mostly from the religious community, but this isn't a religious issue, this is a human rights issue. And it doesn't matter to us who inquires. As far as we're concerned, if somebody's got a problem, we don't ask who they are, but we think that everybody has a right to make the decision about their own bodies when they're old enough to do this.
But opinions differ dramatically. Professor David Katz is chairman of the Jewish Medical Association and part of Mila UK, a Jewish campaign group promoting circumcision. Where do you sit with consent, a child's consent, on having a medical procedure performed on them?
A non-therapeutic procedure performed on them. I take the view that there are procedures that are performed on children, such as ear piercing, without the child's consent. There are medical procedures that are, of course, also performed without the child's consent. Immunization. Circumcision is a basic part of their identity as a Jewish man. It's something that they will identify with throughout their lives. It is the important factor in the continuity of the faith.
While there's no doubt circumcision is an important rite of passage for millions of boys around the world and remains a common medical procedure, there are now a growing number of people beginning to speak out about the potential problems it can cause.
I now know that Alex isn't the only young man to have actually taken his own life following a circumcision that has left him in such pain.
I'm in a better position than I was a year ago. A year ago, like I said, I was quite suicidal, and I need to be strong for myself and all the others out there who haven't spoken out or don't realise or are not brave enough yet.